Hello, part 2 of what I do for winterize my tractor. It's a Kubota BX25, 24 horsepower, and what I'm going to do would apply to any diesel tractor. This is a diesel. Part 1 that I put out last week was installing the tire chains. What I'm planning on doing today is to just drain off and make sure there's no water in the fuel line. I've had problems before where the tractor's running fine, then we get cold weather and I go out to start it in a snowstorm or first snow of the year, and lo and behold, there's the line is frozen. As far as tools, I believe the only thing you'll need is a screwdriver and a pair of pliers, and you'll need a container of some sort to clear. They'll hold the liquid, preferably with a cover on it. And the first thing you need to do is to open the cover, and the fuel filter for the engine is down here. I'll show that in a minute. But to get it adequately, you have to move these, I don't know if you call them side fenders. To remove this engine cowl, there's two knobs, one here, one here. It's just a matter of loosening them off. You don't have to take them all the way off. And this will just slide out. Should be able to see right here, there's a little white cylinder attached to like a rubber neoprene line. One comes up into the engine, one goes down through the back of the tractor. That's your fuel line. Like I say, there's another one that's down under the tractor. It would be right under where the seat is. Looks the same. It's a little much harder to get at. But in my experience, water seems to gather here, which will freeze and cause you the most grief. Plus it's the easiest to get at, so it's the one that I tend to work at the most. So here again is the fuel line right here. There is one bolt here, or nut, that does have to be loosened, not removed, and I believe it's a 10 millimeter. It is a 10 millimeter bolt, and it just has to be loosened to a certain point that you'll be able to slide that out. The oil filter is tapered, and it's just hold it back. So there's an insulation that just on this that just needs to be pulled back on the fuel line. That goes towards the end. It goes towards the fuel tank. Pull that back. It's split, or usually a split. You can just pull that apart away. It just keeps the fuel line from rubbing on some of these nuts and bolts and whatnot around the engine. The fuel line clamp is just a simple clamp that just has three little tabs. Squeeze them together, pull them back away from the line. Have your container nearby because it may start leaking. I actually use these forceps here. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but it helps. And the fuel line itself tends to stick. And the screwdriver just kind of loose, very carefully working around the edge of the fuel line where it meets the filter, just to pull it back. Just helps to break that seal that it builds up where it sticks to the filter. Perhaps I should take the other one off on the top side first. These are giving me a little more room to work. I don't see any water in there. Again, I don't see any water in that. the oil would sit on top of the water, or you'd see little bubbles that were forming in it. What I do next is I actually, having the fuel line inside this container to make sure I capture any spill or whatever, turn on the key only halfway. Don't engage the engine, just enough to engage the fuel pump. It's same as you would do if you were starting the glow plugs to warm it up in the winter time. Same as like accessories in a car, you just that part way, you'll hear a click, 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 click sound, which is the fuel pump starting, and that'll pump a little bit of fuel. So I just need to turn it on for a few seconds. You can see there, with just a matter of a couple of seconds, I got some fair bit of fluid there. Now it's just a matter of doing the reverse, starting, reinstalling the fuel pump, or the filter. You can put a new filter in, they're not very expensive. But unless you've been running a lot of dirty fluid, it's not really necessary. This should go on this side. Slide the two lines on. The filter only should go on one way. And just using your pliers, squeeze these little tabs, bring them back up close to where the filter is. And I just have to tighten the nut on that filter, or right there, makes it loose. You can see these little tabs here that I squeeze on the fuel line. And that's all it is to do this process. One of the things that's real critical in the wintertime with a diesel tractor, pretty well any tractor though, is to make sure that your fuel tank is kept full. At least 3/4 full, but as close to full as possible. What happens during the cold weather, condensation will happen, which will attract any water that's there, that's and that will settle in your tank if there's room for it to moisture to get in your tank, condense, form, and with a diesel tank line, it will freeze the line. It also can harm your engine. So really keep your tank full. It should be kept full year round, but particularly in the winter, cold weather time. Just tightening up this bolt on the filter to hold the filter tight so it doesn't move around, get loose. One thing before you put the engine cowl back on, or right after you put it back on, is to just check to make sure there's no leaks. You can see any wet areas around where the end of the fuel lines enter the filter there where you've had them off. And you just really have to snug this up. It's not super tight. So I put the engine cowl back on. That concludes part 2 of what I do to winterize the tractor. Simple thing for a diesel tractor to do, but it's a lot better to do it now when the weather's nice, there's no wind, beautiful day, rather than trying to do it in the middle of a snowstorm when the tractor's froze up. It's -1 today, right around 0. If there was any water there, it would have shown up either as ice crystals or you would have seen the water itself. So hopefully, fingers crossed, there's no water in the tank or the line that's built up over the summer, fall into this time of year. Off camera, I just topped up the tank with diesel. I've got at least one more part that I do for winterizing this tractor. And that's removing the backhoe and installing the box grader back on. Hopefully I'll have that out in about another week. If you like this video, please provide some comments, what you liked, didn't like. And if you really like this channel, have a look at some of my other videos. I'd really like if you'd subscribe. It gives me the incentive to put out some more.